Welcome, everybody. Bobby Emer here for the Power of Connection broadcast. I'm excited to be here with my friend Matt Zerker. Welcome.
Thank you.
So today's topic is really, really interesting because we're going to talk about fighting man up culture and basically helping men have real conversations with real integrity and emotional integrity to talk about their shit. And so, if anyone's offended by the language, too bad. It's okay. You know what? We need to get real about what we're talking about. I think it's really important. And this topic's actually, Matt's doing a lot of work in this area, and so I think it's important for us to have this really great conversation that affects our mental health, that affects many different things that a lot of men struggle with in terms of their emotional well-being. So I think it's good to have you here for us. Thank you for that.
Thank you for having me.
Now, before we get going, we have to get into kind of the logistics of it. So, Power Connection broadcast, we want people to be involved. We want you to ask questions. So, get engaged. Ask questions below. Comment below. Let us know what you think. Tell us what you like. Tell us where you're from. Are you from North America, South America, Europe, Asia, Africa, Australia? Let us know where you're listening in from. Ask Matt questions about the topic. He is an expert in his field. He's definitely he has a company called Tether that's talking about this and starting conversations and creating platforms for men to have these real, honest conversations, which I think is really powerful. If you like what you're hearing, you can tag people during the conversation. You can share this on your own page. You can also like, heart, clap, light bulb, and smiley face, the stuff in the feed here, right? So it looks it's all like. It's very fun. Deep, 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 deep. It's always kind of fun. So I think that's a really good thing to do to get people involved. So if you are joining us, please let us know, and I'm looking forward to seeing your engagement. So and again, Power Connection broadcasts on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays around 8:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We talk about issues that affect professionals in the workplace. My expertise is mostly on public speaking, personal branding, employee engagement, leadership development. And things like social media, things like that. But I like to bring in guest speakers to talk about things that complement what I'm talking about, but things that I'm also passionate about. This one actually is completely related to Power Connection, right? This is about connecting with each other. And so I have my own Facebook group on how to connect with each other on a more deeper personal level. So your topic definitely resonated with me. So let's start off with you, Matt, telling us a bit about yourself and your story, and then we'll kind of get into the topic.
Yeah, I'd love to. My journey with Tether and with this type of work, this work around emotional integrity and men being able to open up with each other, really started in 2018. I was living in Toronto at the time, still living in Toronto. I was living in a different place, and one of my closest best friends, Christian, actually died very suddenly in 2018. He had a pulmonary embolism. He dropped dead in front of our apartment complex. And I had struggled with anxiety and depression and feelings of isolation my entire life. And it was really sort of in that moment when I lost somebody who was one of those people in my life that I could actually talk with, that I could actually be completely myself, completely unveneered with, that I realized that I had lost something incredibly meaningful. I went into a really, really dark place. I was depressed. I was chronically anxious. I couldn't get out of bed most days. And for a period of time, I wanted to kill myself. Wow. And I really sincerely did not see a place on this earth for myself. And I didn't see a way to go on. And I tried everything. I tried medication. I tried talk therapy. I tried some, slightly more esoteric ways of dealing with mental health that are now starting to become much more in vogue. And, really nothing actually worked for me. And I was really at the end of my rope. I was smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. I was doing drugs. I was drinking. And I was really in a horrible place. I could no longer perform at work. And I didn't know what I had to do. I went on mental health leave to try and figure some of this stuff out. And when I went on mental health leave, I was working with a friend of mine who happened to be a therapist in training at the time. And he suggested that I join a men's group with him. And at this point, I had done group therapy, I'd done talk therapy, and I was kind of like, okay, well, you know what? If you think it's going to help me, I'll give it a shot. Sure. And I went to this group, and I sat in this group with like these men, and they said, "How are you doing?" And they wanted me to share, and I said, "I don't really know how I'm feeling. I feel terrible. I feel depressed. I feel like I can't go on." And instead of trying to fix the problem for me, and instead of trying to give me a whole bunch of solutions about what I could do, things I could fix, they literally just sat there and held space for me, and they loved me. And they said, "You know what? We love you exactly as you are and exactly as you're showing up today." And they just simply held me in that space. And I left that, and I felt slightly different. I felt like I had actually genuinely connected with people. I felt like these people actually saw who I was. Very shortly after that, I decided that I was going to go on a men's retreat as well, because I had started to get into this work, and I had started to really see some actual benefit and progress from this. And I went down to this retreat in Racebrook, Massachusetts. And at that retreat, really everything changed for me. I connected with men from all walks of life, all backgrounds. One of my closest connections happened to be a man who spent the majority of his 20s in prison. We went back to back in this exercise called the healing journey. I was full of rage and full of anger that I didn't really understand and that I didn't know was there, and I had tried to suppress for so many years. And he actually wept in front of a room of 50 men. He had never felt safe enough in front of a group of guys, and had never actually cried in front of a person in his entire life. Everything changed for us. Both of us talked about not being able to go to sleep. We would wake up with anxiety. I woke up with a panic attack every single day for a period of about 9 months. And that night after we did that, it was the first night I actually slept through the night, and it was the first night I actually woke up without any pain. And so I was like, there is something here. There is something in this connection. There is something with guys actually speaking and connecting and holding space for each other, and holding a room where, we can actually talk about what's going on in our lives. I didn't know it at the time. I didn't think, I'm going to start, a men's community right away. But that was kind of the big jump off point into that work. And now I find myself here in 2020 actually trying to build a platform.
Okay, so now here you are. And first off, thanks for sharing that really powerful and vulnerable story. Hopefully, again, if you're listening to this, Matt just shared a really deep story about how he was challenged with dealing with some very tragic and also difficult circumstances in his life and his mental health, and was the inspiration behind getting to where he is now, to create a platform for men to have real conversations through his platform called Tether. So thank you for sharing that. Again, if you are joining us, ask questions. Let us know what your thoughts are on creating emotional space for yourselves and dealing with mental health. And please do let us know where you're from. Where are you listening in? We'd love to hear if we want to engage people in the audience who are joining in. And this might be an awkward, difficult conversation for people, which let's address right now. Why is this conversation difficult for people?
I think it speaks to what we've been talking about, is this idea of man up culture. Yeah. Men are not encouraged to actually share openly and honestly. We are told from a very young age, whether it's actually explicitly or just by sort of outdated notions of masculinity that get perpetrated through the media and things like that, that men should be stoic, men should not be vulnerable, that it's a sign of weakness for men to cry. We talk about this whole idea that real men don't cry. Right. And that is a huge burden, especially for people that are just having a human experience. Yeah. Right. Just like any other person, men feel emotions, and it's actually this lid that is put on that by this idea and this notion of man up culture that actually makes men feel like they can't be truly themselves and truly authentic. One of the most interesting things that I've learned in this process is that actually 93% of men do not identify with the way masculinity is portrayed in the media. Wow. Which is it's a crazy
93%.
93%. Wow. And this is a campaign called #RealStrength. And what that tells you is that what the media is putting out there in terms of how men should behave is not actually the way that men feel, right? Men feel like, they want to be good fathers. Men feel like they want to be vulnerable with their partner. They want to be honest and open with their friends. I've had so many conversations with people in my life that have said, I would love to be able to actually talk with my friends about something real. And I just don't feel like we can actually have that conversation. I am literally afraid of actually being the first person to reach out and the first person to breach these topics. So I think it's that idea of man up culture that's creating this lid where men feel like it's not okay for them to actually share, and that's really what we're trying to combat is that notion that sharing feelings equals some kind of a weakness in men, which is completely the opposite. And we believe that being open, honest, and vulnerable is an incredible show of strength.
Mm-hmm. And I can share my own personal experience with this. I mean, I've always been somebody that has been good at showing my emotions and talking about it. And what I can tell you is that was actually inspired by a couple of my close friends at university, and they were women. And my best friend, she was a woman, Maureen, and she got me to be. I used to be just a joker all the time, and never serious about the stuff. And she got me really in touch with my emotions to talk about how my feelings, and it was actually quite. It was quite a nice, powerful emotional release. And so, and then pretty soon I became like that all the time. And so, I developed my EQ and my emotional intelligence around, just being comfortable with my emotions and being self-aware about these things. And what I found was, over the years, it got me in trouble. So, certainly it definitely attracted a lot of women friends. Most of my friends are women, which is fine. That's because they like us being emotionally open about stuff. But two things happened when it came to work with men. One was a lot of men were uncomfortable with the stuff that I was bringing up. They thought that I was, they thought I was either bringing up stuff that maybe it was meant to make them look weak or trying to gain an upper hand. I'm like, no, I just really wanted the best to understand how you really feel about stuff. Like that's like we never get a chance to talk about this stuff. And I think we all struggle with this idea that it's very difficult for us to find times to truly have great, deep conversations. That's why Power of Connection, this broadcast, exists. That's why my first TEDx talk was on how to have deep, personal connection with people, because I found that most of the stuff that I did, most of my daily life was surface stuff. It was never about deep stuff. And then the other thing that got me in trouble with having kind of trying to be deep and emotional people was some people, men, thought I was being sarcastic or thought I was being serious. They're like, they thought I was.
Well, you are a joke. You do have a very joker.
No, I know, right?
Personality,
no, I know. So they thought I was being sarcastic and kind of joking and being like, why would you say that? And they're like, I don't know what to make of you. I can't take you seriously. No, I legitimately feel this way, and I legitimately feel good about you guys, and I want to express how wonderful you are. And they thought I was being sarcastic.
Well, and that's a very difficult thing for a lot of men to receive from another man.
Yeah.
Right. Like I know that one of the hardest things that I ever did was actually telling a man for the first time ever that I loved them.
Yeah.
But genuinely meant that I loved them, and not in any kind of a romantic way, but in a very genuine, loving way. And one of the things that kind of came out of all of this for me is like I started to get confused because I was like, well, why do I love these people so much? Why do I love these men in my life so much? And what I realized through this process is like there is a part of me, a part of my being that deeply craves these types of connection. And we find it easier to build these types of emotional relationships with women because it's understood that is a safer thing that we can do. But when it comes to men talking to men, we stick to topics like sports or politics, very cognitive things. We don't actually drop down and say, this is what I'm going through and this is what I feel for you. Because again, we don't want to be isolated. We don't want to be socially taken out of that thing. And it's so deep, and you can see how deeply ingrained it is that even when you're trying to just express some modicum of like gratitude to someone, they're like, I don't know how to deal with that. Like that is how deep this actually goes through that wire.
Yeah, and so I'm a big believer in starting deeper conversations. Well, that's why I plan dinner masterminds with people that have deep conversations. That's why I facilitate conversations on my Facebook group. That's why I facilitate this type of conversation. So what you're doing, I think, is really, really great. The other thing too that I think from my personal perspective is that I'll be very upfront with you. I avoid men's groups. I avoid men's groups because I've spent my years being comfortable with women and being in groups. So all my I'll have spa days with all my girlfriends and be like, me and 4 women will hang out at the spa and we'll just talk about everything. And I've been doing that forever. And so for me, like, if someone invited me to a men's group, I probably wouldn't go because I'd be like, oh man, like I've spent like literally 25, 30 years mostly spending my time having emotional conversations with women, not with men.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, please.
I want to ask you a question. When the idea of going to a men's group, like if let's say like I said to you, Bobby, you're coming to my men's group with me next week. Like no thing. What kind of comes up for you? Is it around safety? Is it around the space? Is it around having this type of conversation? What is it in you that's sort of reticent about sharing with other guys?
So it's for me, it's like this automatic thing goes up my back that A, I'm not gonna have a good time.
Okay.
B, I'm thinking
you might not.
No, I know, but I mean, no, but why? Because it's based on the fact that we're just gonna talk about beer and politics, business and stuff. Like, I mean, stuff that I really want to talk about. Although I love talking about politics, but it's stuff that I mean, I want to talk about. But also, I'm thinking that maybe I'm not going to. There's going to be a bunch of guys there that I won't connect with,
right?
Because my history has been like there are men out there who are emotionally aware and talk about feelings, and those are probably my favorite. Like one of my other male best friends, Carl, he's completely emotionally transparent, and I love that about it. And that's why we connect so well. And so all my friends are like that. I love that about them. So I'm automatically thinking it's me. I'm not going to be able to connect with these guys, and why would I'd rather just find Now if it's mixed, as far as I'm willing to go, I'm willing to go mixed. Like there's like a few emotionally accessible men and a bunch of women. Okay, let's do that. Mixed. In fact, mixed groups are kind of fun. Like whenever I have a party at my place, we have a great conversation. I love that.
Yes.
But I don't think I've ever been to one that just men.
Yeah. Well, so like that's what's so interesting. Like, I would say there's part of it that is very much the case. It's like okay, I'm afraid that I won't connect with people, and we're going to talk about all of this kind of stuff. I wonder if there's something below that where it's like my experience was that I didn't feel like I could actually trust men to hold a space for what I was going through emotionally. I worried that if I was like vulnerable, if I cried, if I said, I'm unhappy, if I said that I feel like less than, I feel like I'm never good enough in life, that, I would kind of get this, it's like, well, I think, please don't overshare that.
I think part of it's there in me subconsciously that, like my experience of men has been that they're not usually able to hold emotional space for me. So therefore I don't expect it. But if one has been created and it's been curated to be that way, then I certainly see, like I have many people in my network who talk about these men's groups or these dads groups, right?
Yeah.
Again, I'm not even part of any dads groups because for me, like it's more about. But I talk about being a 21st century dad. I talk about being the new man or dealing with man culture. I'm firmly in the camp of trying to fight this stuff and trying to ensure that men have this conversation. So I think it's great what you're doing.
Yeah.
But I'm being very honest about that in terms of what I'm talking about.
But actually, your discomfort is exactly why this is needed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, which is perfect.
And it's funny because, like, I'm a pretty emotionally aware guy, and I'm pretty comfortable with myself. But I'll freely admit, I think that's not something that motivates me to go. But I see the need for people to do that, and I think there's also a lot of men who are not like me, who are definitely way far down that idea where they've never shared at all, and so they definitely can leverage something like this. So I'm here with Matt Zerker. We're talking about fighting the man up culture that a lot of men deal with, and having real deep personal conversations. He's the founder and CEO of Tether, which creates conversations. If you're joining us, ask questions. Let us know what you think. We're already getting some comments, so let me start with a comment here. So Nora says, it starts early in one's life. Wouldn't it be a good idea to equip our children with the skills to express their feelings as men? I don't believe we actually think about it. I would say that not enough think about it. I have a son. I'm constantly thinking about it. I'm trying to make sure that he feels emotionally safe to talk about what his feelings were. And sadly, he has a harder time than his sister. His sister is just like, Daddy, I feel this way. But my son does not. And I'm like, I want him to be able to have deep conversations. But he reminds me of me. He's a joker, and he's kind of a nerd, and he wants to talk about the Avengers. He wants to talk about chess. He wants to talk about math. He doesn't want to talk about his feelings.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to find a way to create that space for him and let him know it's okay.
Yeah.
But it does start early in life.
It certainly does, and like it's very much about modeling of parents, leadership figures, authority figures, teachers, right? Like he's not just picking up this information from you, right? He's picking this information up. Children are incredible learners.
Yes.
And they're like sponges, and I think humans are like this naturally, and it's a survival mechanism where we very quickly understand what the implicit rules of the game are. Right. And like in schools, right? So you may be creating this beautiful container for your son at home, but then he goes to school and he starts to notice that the boys that are more popular or what have you are actually the ones that talk about this or that, or don't talk about their feelings, or are less emotional.
And we don't know what what affects him. Like when he was in grade 2, he was bullied for a couple of months.
Yeah.
And I have no idea, because he kept it from us for a couple of months. It breaks my heart, right? Mm-hmm. I have no idea what that did to his head or did to him. Like it's something he never met. Like most of us, when we think of trauma in our life, I remember episodes from when I was 6 or 8 years old that may seem fleeting, but I still remember them. 45 years later, it's crazy.
Right.
So I don't know what that. I want him to talk about it. Like I want him to not feel shame. I want him to know it's okay. But I don't know whether he's going to hold on to that forever.
Well, as somebody who was severely bullied I was bullied every day from grade 2 to grade 6.
Wow.
And it still stays with me.
Yeah.
It still impacts the way that I trust people. It still impacts, and like I've gone deep down the rabbit hole with all of these things. I've done, energetic work. I've done hypnotherapy work around all of this kind of stuff. There is something that kind of sticks with you. Right. And I feel terrible for your son, because, feeling that level of exclusion is difficult, and it probably has made him more guarded in certain ways.
I totally agree.
And so I think that there's a lot of issues here. There's like this signaling that kids get from what the environment around them. And then there's also this, you have, potentially in a lot of cases the parent or the father figure isn't emotionally open or doesn't have emotional integrity, which I know is not the case in this situation, but there's that. And then you have all of these little sort of micro events that actually starts teaching the child how they behave, whether that's adaptive or maladaptive. What they're learning is that in order to survive, I need to behave like this. And survival means that I get included in sports, in play dates and all of this kind of stuff. So it's insidious, and what's super interesting is that it happens almost without us knowing, but it's all of these confluence of circumstances that really compound on each other and make it so that this kind of notion of not showing your emotions, not showing your feelings, not being vulnerable it sticks in the person's mind.
That's really insightful. Appreciate that, and I'm always going to try to find ways to have these conversations with my son and my daughter. We have a question. So again, if you have questions around this conversation, please add them below. So Josh Schmersel asks, what can we do to create space for deep conversations? How can we bring other men to that moment? Calendar, groups, agendas, okay. So he's basically giving you a doozy of question here.
Yeah. No, I love it. I think so. First off, signaling, and thank you very much for the question, Josh. I really appreciate it. So I think the first big thing is letting the other man know subtly through cues that you're actually a safe person to talk to, right? Creating that container, simply by saying something like, listen, if you ever need to talk about anything that's going on in your life, please know that you can come to me and that you can speak with me. It's really kind of as simple as that. I think men's groups are a fantastic way for men to connect. Obviously, we are building a platform that's going to help men connect through a variety of different means, through forums, one-on-one connections, and group conversations as well. So, once we're up and running, I would encourage anyone that's watching this to download Tether and try and take our community for a spin. So that's really interesting. We want to take that experience of the men's community, and we want to put that online. But even having like the opportunity to regularly check in with men in your life, I think that's super important. I'm really blessed and I think this is coming from a lot of the work that I've done, but I have actively sought out people in my life that can go there with me, right? And I've created the space for them to be vulnerable by being vulnerable myself. So this is the hardest part, actually, is that a lot of people are just not going to go there unless they actually feel safe to go there, or they feel like, you know, you've kind of gone there first. So, and this is where leadership, I think, can really tie into this conversation, right? Is leadership is not just, you know, working as harder than everybody else, or, you know, telling people what to do. It's actually leading with your behavior. And so one of the biggest things that I've noticed, especially in men's groups, is that when I've really gone there, when I've really dug deep into what my experience is and what's going on within me, that has actually allowed other men to feel safe in order to do that. So by modeling the behavior yourself, you actually give permission to other men to go there. And I think that is super, super important. And then just letting people know that if they ever need to speak to you about anything, and like make it very clear that it can be about anything that they want to talk to, that you're going to be somebody who's safe to speak with, and that you're going to hold space for that conversation. That's, I think, really important.
Yeah, and I can talk to this too, because my first TEDx talk on how to, the 5 C's of connection, you know, how to create deep connection with people. Number one is, as you said, you create an environment and a space of trust, and, you know, and you build that through many different things. But one is saying it explicitly, saying, listen, I like set them up for it. Listen, I want to have a deep conversation with you. And sometimes it's better to do it a week in advance. Hey, listen, next week I need to talk to you about something really personal. If that's okay, can we set up some time for that? And when you do that, that you're creating that space and you're creating that, you know, the context. The other thing, of course, Brené Brown said in her TED Talk that, you know, sharing vulnerability invites vulnerability and deep connection. So the fact that you're willing to share, here's what I'm going through. How do you feel about this? And then pretty soon they may want to share what they're going through. And I think that's an important piece. And a lot of it comes in creating the environment and saying explicitly those words. And once it takes, and as you said, once someone expresses that leadership to have that conversation, other people will follow. So even for the group stuff, like if you say that we're going to have this deep conversation with a group of people, like one of my friends, she runs this dinner where they were going to talk about body image. I was like, oh, that's a good idea. Like I definitely had.
And something guys do not do.
Right.
Like the whole body image thing is like not a topic.
And I was like, I'm happy to talk about that. Like that's something that totally is up my alley. Right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, for me, I thought, and because I've been doing that, you know, the other thing too is like, once you exercise that muscle of doing it, it gets easier and easier and easier. Like I can tell you, the first time back in university when I was having those deep conversations, it was really awkward and comfortable. And eventually, I just got used to it.
Yeah.
And pretty soon,
first time you want to like throw up in your mouth. You're just like, wait, did I eat some like bad clams? I don't like this.
Yeah,
your being is literally telling you, don't do this.
Don't do this. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it gets better, right?
Yes.
It gets easier. There's another comment here where Nora says, we need to create a game to introduce a conversation on the topic for kids and adults. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Is there a way to gamify this for kids so they can have deeper conversations? I mean, that's interesting.
Ooh, you know what? That's a great question that I haven't done a ton of thinking on. You know, my expertise is more with adult males. Because I think that, you know, but I think that that's a really, really interesting point. One of the things that I sort of see is that it's really important that as the adult generation that is going to be bringing up this younger generation, that we do the work on ourselves. We cannot pass along something that we do not have, right? We cannot pass along a set of values that we do not embody. So I think it really does start with this generation fundamentally changing the way that we treat each other and the way that men treat each other. I think the community between men, like, so, and you alluded to this before, it's like women are exceptionally good at talking with each other about everything that's going on in their lives. They provide incredible support networks for each other. Men and women also can talk together about emotional issues and stuff like that. What's super interesting is that men actually really come, especially heterosexual men, the statistics bear out that heterosexual men especially really lean on their female partner for all of their emotional support. But men do not connect with each other about these kinds of things. So I think that's why it's super important for men to be connecting about this. And from the perspective of that, I have seen men break down completely in a men's retreat setting. These men have been holding on to shame, pain for years and years and years. They have estranged relationships with their children, bad relationships with their wives. Maybe they have no relationships with their family at all. And to a man, what happens is after they have these incredible experiences, all they want to do is go home and be a better dad.
Right.
They want to be a better son. They want to be a better husband. And so there's really powerful deep healing in this kind of work. And that doesn't just affect that man or his relationship with men. It affects everybody that his life comes into contact with. And I think that the biggest thing for children, and I totally agree with this idea of gamifying it, because that is a really interesting way of getting children to engage in it. I think even just having them, identify emotions and what they're feeling and learning about what those emotions feel like in their body and having them mirrored back. But it really, really starts with the men in their lives. For like, if we're talking about specifically for male children with men, it really does start with their fathers, the authority figures, the people that influence them, modeling that behavior themselves.
Yeah, and my son actually is doing a program to talk about our bodies and like sex education type thing. So they're having discussions and games and in that thing that's working really well for him. So I think that's kind of cool to have, and we're trying to have a conversation with him, but he also doesn't want to talk to us about it as much. Which I mean, it's good. He's doing those things. Mm-hmm. Now, one of the things I wanted to bring up, which is someone brought up already, Aaron says, be careful of stereotypes when you're trying to start a movement. I mean, yes, I think that there's going to be people that feel this way because, again, what we're talking about is not all women, all men. We're just talking about there are women who that I've experienced that I've had better emotional conversations with. There are many men who struggle with their emotional, whether it's through patriarchy or being taught to and have shame around around expressing their emotions. So, and then Aaron also said, statistics, good save. Be sure that you cite that. Just because I choose to work out does not mean that I am one way. And again, let me be very clear. We are not saying that at all. So I want you to kind of address this.
Sure.
Yeah.
About the stereotype of masculinity.
Yeah, because he said, because he suggested we made, when we're starting this movement around this deep conversation.
Sure.
We have to make sure we don't stereotype. And so I don't think we are.
Right.
I think we're having real conversations.
No, and I think a lot of men are actually good at this.
Yeah.
But if you look at the statistics, so over 50% of men have less than two people in their life that they can have a real conversation with.
I've seen that.
40% of men who are actively in crisis, so like mental health crisis, something like that, do not reach out to anybody because they feel like they have nobody to talk to. And if you look through the media right now, there is this crisis, this hidden crisis in men's mental health, and it's around emotional isolation. Yeah. And there's a lot of people talking about it. Dr. John Olaf, who was one of the founders of an organization called Heads Up Guys, he's very vocal about it. That whole organization is fantastically vocal about it. There's a movement in the United States called the Everyman Movement, and this is about men's groups and emotional honesty and emotional integrity. I don't feel like I'm trying to stereotype and say that all men can't actually express emotions or anything like that.
I don't feel that at all.
I think that what I'm trying to say is that there are a lot of men out there who have a lot of difficulty connecting with other men in their lives and don't feel that degree of safety that actually allows them to feel like they can open up and have a deeper bond, have a deeper connection, even though that's actually what they truly want.
So when we take this, so let's take this to the workplace then, right? So how does having what are some of the challenges, or what are some of the challenges that men are having in the workplace when it comes to being able to express their emotions and things like that?
Yeah, well, I think it comes down to communication and emotional intelligence, right? And I think there's obviously a lot of news media around troubles in the workplace, men's behavior, and stuff like that.
Sure.
And I think that's totally valid. And I think what this comes down to is a communication issue, right? I think a lot of men want to feel like how they feel and what they're feeling is actually valid. And so that's why this type of deep men's work is so incredibly powerful and so healing, is because we are literally simply holding space for each other to be able to experience these emotions, experience what's coming up, regardless of how that's actually manifesting in that moment. And what ends up happening, I think, from my own experience and from the experience of like thousands of other men, is that once you feel like you are seen, once you feel like your emotions and your feelings are actually valid, you actually start to communicate with more integrity naturally in your life. And I think that this is a really important thing, especially for dynamics in an office, where you have men actually be better communicators. If we are told that we cannot talk about our feelings, right, what ends up happening is we revert to anger and shame. So we don't feel like we have the ability to actually communicate honestly, and so it comes out through bad action or bad words or both, right? I think if we feel like we actually have the space to be able to communicate honestly and that our feelings are valid, with training, you can actually teach people to speak about what they're feeling in a way that's actually not projecting onto other people. It's not blaming people. It's not, mean or angry or in any kind of way. And I think that improves communication between everybody, especially in a corporate setting. It benefits the entire corporate culture. But I think that necessarily starts with the need for men to have a space where they can actually communicate and discuss openly what's going on and to feel like what they are going through is valid. And from my experience, I found that to be most effective in a men's group setting, in a man-to-man setting. And the changes that happen in men that I've seen is, hugely profound. And it changes how they relate to everybody in their life.
And what's interesting, I mean, a question that I have actually on this whole thing is, I mentioned before that most of my friends that I feel emotionally connected to are women, but I like mixed company. So for me, if I had a group of, let's say, 10 people, that was a mix of men and women, I probably would feel most comfortable there. But other men would not want that. They would not want women there. So they prefer just the men. So can you explain to me, like, what is the benefit for the men who are in these men's groups about how or why it's better for them to emotionally have support from just men only?
And that's
because I personally don't get it, right?
Yeah,
but I understand. I think my perspective is, you can maybe shed light on this. My perspective is that some men are more when they see other men struggling with what they're going through, they feel comfortable to share what they're going through because it's just the man. They get the male experience. So I understand the tribalism aspect of it.
Yes.
But maybe you can explain to me like what they see, what the ones who are doing this are getting.
I think it's that we are missing this relationship, right? We are missing a deep emotional and connected relationship with other men in our lives. Like we're not meant as humans, I don't think, to be completely emotionally distant from each other. I think it's very natural for people to express their love for another person and for that to be okay. But obviously in modern society, a man saying to another man, "I love you," isn't something that happens really at all because we're afraid of what other people would think of us if we actually said that. So I think the reason why it's so important that it's man-to-man is, like you said, I think it is the common context and the common experience, right? One of the biggest things for me, it wasn't that somebody had a solution to what I was going through. It was literally that they had simply experienced that from my perspective, right? They had felt the same way. They had felt not good enough. They had felt like less of a man for doing something or for not doing something or not achieving something. I think men really tie their identity to their careers and what they're able to produce and provide in society. And what happens when we fall short? Well, we have an identity crisis, right? And I've seen that happen over the years with a number of people, where life and their career doesn't live up to what they said that they thought that they were capable of doing, and they completely crumble in that. So we need a space, I think, to actually discuss that openly with each other. And it's not about fixing each other's problems. It's literally about saying, I've been there, I feel that way, and I really honor you for showing up and actually expressing that. When somebody, and this is what's so important, is like when somebody is having those feelings of inadequacy, when they feel like they are not good enough, when they feel like they are falling short in life, all they really want is to be validated. That's all I wanted. Was just for somebody to see me and say, I still love you anyways, right? And so to actually have guys say that to you, to just simply look you in the eyes and actually respect you for having that conversation, for making that point. And what's so interesting is they feel it in themselves. It resonates with them because they're like, yeah, that's something that I feel too. And it's that feeling of not being alone, that common experience that I think is massively powerful. in these types of connected relationships. And so that's why I think it's so important for it to be, men to men in that context.
Okay, well, so we're having a great, deep, powerful conversation with Matt Zerker from Tether, talking about fighting the man up kind of like statements that people get, and having and making sure men can have real conversations and their emotions and create emotional space. Aaron also commented saying, "Agreed, totally, and I love your movement about all this. I am KS47XXY, and this has shown me that we are all human and we all have statistically affected. It doesn't bode one way or another, in my opinion. It's not man or woman. Look at the Me Too. Look at the Me Too movement, I guess." He's saying. And then he also said, "More men's group makes sense. For your cause, love that. I'll look at adding more groups. So why doesn't just literature work for where more groups are? I have a family member where we all grew up strict religious when at the age of 30, the family member didn't know how to make more homosexual friends. I told them about anonymous groups. They aren't just for addicts anymore. They're out there for everything. I go to them often for lots of things. Also, the penal system has tons of men's groups." Yeah, it's true.
And actually, one of that man that I described earlier, the one that went back to back with me in the healing journey, his work now is actually going into prisons and sharing this work. So he's really changed his life as well because of that. He's fantastic.
That's awesome. That's great.
He's one of those guys who just like he walks up to you and you're just like, oh, you've got some kind of like a different energy. Like he just like really impacts you.
So again, and if you're joining, if you have questions about helping men talk about their emotions and have deep, real good conversations, again, this is what Power Connection is all about. So ask your questions. I'd love to have you engage. Let us know. And again, let me know where you're from, because we've always had people from all over the world, which is kind of cool. But I kind of want to get a sense. Have you run a group?
Yes.
Or, okay. So can you give us a sense of what are some of the things that you're doing in this group, that some sort of things that are structured and designed to make it really helpful for men who want to do this?
Yeah, it's super interesting actually. So it starts with a couple very uncomfortable exercises.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like
get right into it.
like us standing face to face with like maybe this much space between us, right? And like looking each other in the eyes and actually just simply taking each other in. Those are called AV lines. So, and one of the things that we do in that scenario is we get as close as we possibly can without being so uncomfortable that we want to run away. But it's got to feel a little bit uncomfortable. That's the whole point.
Get out of your comfort zone. Into the growth zone.
That's where all the growth happens, right? Yeah. But when we do that, we say, if you truly knew me, you would know this. And the prompt is there to actually get men to talk about something that they would really never share with another person. If you really knew this about me, insert the thing about you that you've never told anybody. Ooh. That is where we want you to go with that kind of stuff. Then what we like to do is we actually like to check in, right? So and the check-in needs to be a little bit more about not just like what's going on in your life. That's all great. That's all context. But what's going on in your physical somatic experience, right? What are the sensations in your body? Where do you feel tightness? Where do you feel the emotions in your body? As men, we're very much used to being very cognitive, to saying, oh, I'm feeling this because of this. But we actually don't connect deeper with our body. And there's a lot of information that our body can give us in terms of like, I'm feeling tightness in the chest, right? And so often it's not just a mental, emotional experience, it's a somatic experience as well. So we let guys check in. Then what we like to do is through that check-in, we kind of decipher who needs a little bit more help that day. And the whole goal of what we're doing is to drive men deeper into their experience, what they are experiencing, what they are feeling. We're trying not to stigmatize. If they're angry, we want them to let them be angry. If they're feeling shame, we want them to connect with their shame. If they're feeling joy, like it doesn't have to all be negative.
Okay, sure,
right?
Sure.
Like if they're feeling like truly feeling joy, like let's connect with it. I remember one experience at a men's group. Like I had gone through some really tough emotional shit that whole weekend. I was drained. I was exhausted. I had gotten out all of this stuff. And by the end of it, I was just like, you know what? I feel so good and so light right now. I want to go outside and do push-ups. Okay. And so like they're like, that's what you want to do? And I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do. So me and 6 guys, we had broken off into little groups. We went outside of the barn that we were working in, and I did push-ups for a little, and I started throwing trees, and like I really connected to this like visceral masculine thing of like, I just wanted to lift some heavy shit. I threw rocks into the river. Like I did pull-ups from a beam in the barn. Like I just wanted to exert energy and I wanted to move my body. That is also totally okay. So it can kind of take a lot of forms.
I can't imagine what it would take for me emotionally to want to do push-ups.
Yeah.
For me personally, push-ups, I avoid them like the plague.
I just felt like there was this energy moving through my body and it needed to come out in like a physical exertion.
Wow.
Maybe I could have done swimming laps in the lake, but it was a little cold.
Yeah, I know.
It was December, so that wasn't
my general thing is it's a food, but I get it. I get it. I push up with poutine. Okay, poutine push-ups. Yeah. Okay, so all right. Well, listen. I appreciate everything you've done today and sharing your stuff. If people have questions or comments, even after this broadcast is done, and the replay's there for you to look at, you can ask questions. You can tag Matt. I'm sure he's happy to answer any questions that are following up. Tell people a bit more about Tether and where they can find it and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is www.tether.men. That's tether.men, and Tether is spelled Tethr. So we are a peer-to-peer support network connecting men for real conversations about life through a number of different ways. We want to take this experience of male connection, men's groups, things like that, and we want to put that online. I know that for a lot of men, joining a men's group or going on a retreat, it's either like kind of a bridge too far for them, like it's too much too soon, or they don't have the time resources, or they can't get away from their family, or they don't have the monetary resources. So I wanted to make this work really accessible for anybody that wants to jump into it. So we have a couple different layers. We let you engage in forums. We also let you connect one-on-one for real conversations. And then we let you participate in groups, right? Okay. So it's those three platforms. And the way I kind of see it is like, if you're kind of, reticent about this and you're not really sure what this is all about, just start looking through some of the forums on different topic matters. See if there is a topic that resonates with you and jump into a conversation. If you want to actually like start making new friends, building a support network, jump into that as well. We will connect you one-on-one with other guys that want to be supported and provide support. So it's a reciprocal relationship. And then in the group context, what we want to do is we want to create rooms where we can give prompts and stuff like that. And we want guys to start having these conversations and really get into it. Get into not only like the deep emotional stuff, but also support each other, right? Give each other feedback, provide each other with resources that we can use to be better men, not just for ourselves, but for everybody that our lives touch. So we currently have a Facebook group as well that we're running. It's the Mental Health Support Group for All Men. And if you're interested, you can go find us on Facebook. You can join the community. There's already, hundreds of men in there that are we've started like these conversations already. They're strong. I actually posted something. I'm struggling right now with smoking cigarettes, actually. And so I posted that, and I got 26 comments on my post. Just guys saying, I've been there. This is what I did. Right. This was really tough for me. You can make it. Like, that was super important for me because it's something that I have a lot of shame around, especially starting a company. I don't want to share that I have this weakness. Right. And so, like, I'm actually benefiting from it just as much as the other community members are. So you can find us on Facebook at the Mental Health Support Group for All Men. You can find us across all social media platforms, Instagram at Tether for Men, TETHR for Men. Same thing on Twitter, and on Facebook also. You can follow our page, which is called Tether.
And I'll say that for me, I also I've joined your group, so I'm now part of.
You're part of it.
I'm part of two.
I want you to check in. This is what I'm challenging you to do today. I want you to put a post in the group identifying yourself and also talking about what you're struggling with.
Well, I was going to say
that's my challenge.
I'm part of two. I'm actually now part of two men's groups. So there's your group now, and I joined a dad's group. Awesome. And I saw someone actually posted about a dad thing. I said, oh, okay, that's it got my attention, and I shared my insights, and so I'm working on this too as well. So
I'm not letting that challenge hang. I'm not letting you get away from that.
Well, again, but it's not. It's honestly, it's not that hard for me. Like I'm pretty happy to share. It's more about.
I can't wait to watch you bring it.
Yeah, for sure. I'll bring it. No problem. All right. So thanks so much for joining us for the Power Connection broadcast. We'll be back I think we're going to do one this Friday, but I had to cancel it because of a family issue. So we're going to do our next interview on next week on Monday. But again, check out Matt Zerker and the work he's doing with tether.com. It's really great.
Tether.men.
Sorry, tether.men. My apologies. But what his work he's doing. And, join us for Power Connection Chats in the future at 8:45 a.m. on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. All right? So long, and we will talk very, very soon. And thank you so much for taking the time. I really do appreciate you being here.
Dude, I loved coming, and I love doing this in your home with you.
Yeah,
this is so awesome.
It's awesome.
The
only thing missing,
I've been really great. Yeah.
The only thing missing is I didn't get a tea. I normally like to have a tea. I want to have a tea.
I know. I have my little brain station coffee mug here. It's really.
And we should have told them where we met. Before we can sign off. Let's tell them.
Yeah.
How did we meet?
Well, this is really great. So I've known Bobby for a number of years. You were my GMAT tutor in a previous life. When I was doing
this shirt I'm wearing is from my GMAT class, brought to you by letter B. I used to talk about that all the time.
Yeah, everything in class was brought to you by the letter B. It was fantastic. It was like personal branding stuff. And you were so helpful for me. Not only just, I know we did private work together as well, private tutoring. Yeah. That was in a life where I thought I was going to go do an MBA. Of course, that is not the case anymore. But I just remember you also really, and this is what I think speaks to your character, is you really made more time for me than most other people I think would have in your situation, right? Like, you were a teacher and a coach, and you were paid by a certain number of things, but your influence, your support really didn't stop outside of that, and I always really appreciated how accessible you were. And then we've kind of just sort of kept in touch, I think, a little bit over the years, a message here or there. But this all started with, what was it, Princeton GMAT, or what was the
Veritas Prep.
Veritas Prep. Yeah. I already forgot the name of the.
No, and I've always been impressed by your thoughtful, insightful nature. You're a very smart guy, and I like hearing how you talk. The way you articulate all this stuff so eloquently, I think is going to be great for this video. I think people are going to get a lot of learning from this. So well done.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Guys, so long. We'll see you guys. Have a great week.